As we continue our preparations for the 2022 NFL Draft, it's time to consider why every position should or should not be in play for Buffalo in the first round today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Monday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, or if you're joining us on YouTube, your first watch every day. We are going to continue our preparations for the 2022 NFL Draft by examining each position group on the roster and making the case why or why not that position should be in play for the Buffalo Bills in the first round. And I know Brandon Beane's going to tell you all about picking the best player on the board, and that is, for the most part, a good strategy. But it's always a beautiful thing when that best player on the board comes at a position of need. And as I look through this roster, there are some positions that really stand out to me. And there are some that I feel like shouldn't be even in consideration for that first round pick. And so let's go one at a time, talk about the dynamics of the position. What's new, right? Are the Bills better than they were at the end of the season based on what's happened so far in free agency? And should or should it not be in play for the Bills at pick 25 in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft? So let's start with a pretty easy position, quarterback. The Bills added Case Keenum and Matt Barkley as backups, and they lost Mitch Trubisky and Davis Webb. So is this position group better today than it was at the end of 2022? It's hard to make a case that it is. I think Trubisky is a better backup than Case Keenum, and I think Davis Webb is a better QB3 than Matt Barkley. Now, what's interesting about quarterback that is different than every other position is you really don't play the depth. And so Josh Allen is still your starter. He's still a tier 1 elite NFL quarterback. And because he is the representation of the group, you don't really get concerned that your quarterback room isn't as good because you have Josh Allen. So the reason that the Bills' quarterback room or quarterback play would be better in 2022 is because Josh Allen just continue his evolution. So what's the case here? Is there a case to be made for a quarterback at 25? No, there's not. This shouldn't be in play. Not in the first round. If the Bills like a developmental guy on day 3, okay, sure. But I don't think quarterback is in play for the Bills in the first round or probably the second or third rounds. Let's move on. That's a pretty easy conversation. Running back. In is Duke Johnson. Out is Matt Breida. Everything else is the same. So why would the Bills be better at running back in 2022 compared to where they were last year based on the way things are right now? Well, I think, first of all, Duke Johnson is better than Matt Breida. So the player that was in that Matt Breida RB2, RB3 role is a better player. Duke Johnson's better. I also think that Devin Singletary hit his stride late in the season. And so you hope that there's some carryover from that into 2022. And I don't think Zach Moss can be worse, right? He's either what he is or he'll be better this year. So what's the case? And this is a hot topic right now amongst Bills Mafia. I see your tweets. I see the conversation on social media. There are people that are very much advocating for the Bills to pick a running back in the first round. The case for that is that the highest rated player on your draft board is a running back, and you believe that running back can be a difference maker for your offense that takes something off Josh Allen in a meaningful way. So when it's short yardage, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, you're not relying on Josh Allen to be your power back. You want more production from your backfield, and you feel like you have to draft a player to do it. That's why you would make the case for it at 25. Now, I'd sit here and tell you that I don't think that there's a running back this year that's worth a first-round pick. There's usually not, in my opinion. I would not be a fan of the idea. There's some really, really good mid-round options that I think can give you everything you're looking for in this player at 25. The hot name is Breece Hall from Iowa State, who is the, probably of the top backs in this class, the guy that you look at and say, he has the most potential to be a big play guy in terms of catching the football out of the backfield, pushing the outside on runs, creating some runs, and doing some dazzling things in space. I would also say that I think his vision and contact balance are below average. And I think those are the two most important traits for a running back. But if you're infatuated with the idea of Breece Hall in the first round, take a look at Pierre Strong out of South Dakota State and tell me why he wouldn't be a better pick in the 4th round. And the opportunity cost, right? You get your big play running back in the 4th round, and you still find a way to improve your football team in a more meaningful way at a more important position than running back by picking a corner or something else. Running back production in the NFL is not hard to find. It's the easiest thing to find. I know that might make you feel some type of way because we're talking about the Buffalo Bills, who have tried this 3rd-round running back thing in Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Hasn't really panned out. But across the NFL, it is working. And so I would advocate for the Bills to not pick a running back in the 1st round and focus on other positions and find some help at running back in the middle rounds, 3rd and 4th round. There's going to be some appealing options. There's a long list of guys that I like. Ty Chandler from North Carolina. Jerome Ford from Cincinnati. You've got Rachaad White from Arizona State. Give me those guys in the 3rd, 4th round. And leave these top guys for some other team to pick. So that's your case. I wouldn't be a fan. At tight end, new is O.J. Howard. Out, nothing. The Bills lost nothing at tight end. So is the position group better right now? Absolutely. O.J. Howard is an upgrade to Tommy Sweeney at tight end too. Pretty cut and dry in my opinion. Is there a case for the Bills to draft a a tight end at pick 25? I struggle to find one. Not only do I not think there are tight ends worth the 25th pick in the draft, there's tight ends I like, but they're all day 2 guys. But you have a good situation here in Knox and O.J. Howard. Now, the challenging thing is that both Dawson Knox and O.J. Howard are expiring contracts. And so if these guys go out there and form this dynamic pair of tight ends that you love, you're kind of in a weird spot because they're both expiring contracts. Now, the good thing about tight ends is that the franchise tag is not expensive. It's around $10 million a year. That's why you saw guys like David Njoku, Mike Gesicki, and Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys. All 3 of those guys got the franchise tag this year because it's pretty economic to do that. And so that's kind of the silver lining there as it relates to Dawson Knox and O.J. Howard being in contract years. You can extend one and tag one or whatever you want to do. You're going to have some options, but the franchise tag as it relates to tight ends is very, very reasonable. We talk about Built Bars all the time, the world's best tasting protein bars, but we don't talk enough about the Puffs. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, then you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate because all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and they're healthy. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. They have tons of great flavors: mint brownie, coconut, raspberry, coconut almond, so many great flavors, and new flavors are coming out all the time. And at Built Bar, it's all about the taste. They make it taste great first, then they figure out how to make it healthy, and I don't know how they do it, but they pull it off every single time. Got a deal for you? Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, let's move on to the next position here, which is wide receiver. New to the wide receiver room right now is Jamison Crowder, and the Bills don't have Emmanuel Sanders or Cole Beasley anymore. So why would the position group be better today than it was at the end of 2021? The emergence of Gabriel Davis, right? We feel like he is going to take a big step this year with more opportunity, and of course what he did in that playoff game against Kansas City. And that maybe Jamison Crowder brings more of a yak yards after catch dynamic than Cole Beasley, and you feel like your room is better because of that. So what's the case for wide receiver at 25? Well, I think contingencies for one. You know, you've got Diggs, Davis, and McKenzie all signed for the next 2 years, but that's it, right? You might want to start replenishing this group. You want to get a little bit younger. We'll see what happens with Diggs in the contract and what happens there. You want to get faster, right? Maybe you want some more speed down the field. You want more yards after catch. You want to diversify the room a little bit more. I think there's plenty of reasons to believe in a wide receiver and it having a case to be made at 25. Now, I do think that there's going to be good value in the second, third, and fourth rounds at wide receiver. A lot of players I like in that range. And if you don't find some answers at corner and at interior offensive line, I have a hard time subscribing to wide receiver. But if you can find a meaningful answer in free agency at both of those spots, and a guy like Chris Olave is on the board or Jameson Williams is on the board, to me, those would be great picks at 25 because they add that speed dynamic. So there's a case to be made for wide receiver, but to me, not quite to the level as there will be for some of the positions we're going to talk about coming up here in interior offensive line and corner. Let's move on to offensive tackle. There's been no additions made to the Bills roster at offensive tackle, and I would argue that they lost, in terms of what's departing, Darrell Williams, because Darrell Williams was that guy that if either Dawkins or Spencer Brown got injured, Darrell Williams goes to right tackle, and then Spencer Brown goes to left tackle, or, you know, obviously if Brown goes down, then the right tackle is Darrell Williams. So you lose that guy. And so ideally, Tommy Doyle takes a major step forward. He's your swing tackle, but he's got to have some competition, right? You can't count on that. And so I would think the Bills would add a veteran potentially in free agency, or at least draft a player here that can challenge Tommy Doyle to be the swing tackle. So is there a case for offensive tackle at pick 25? I struggle to find a case. Maybe a guy that is a tackle guard, right? There's some flexibility. You think of him as a starting guard for you that can play some tackle in a pinch if you need it. And there's guys like that, like Zion Johnson, Kendrick Green, Tyler Smith. All three of those guys have experience playing tackle but project as guards in the NFL. So you can kind of have that Darrell Williams player replaced with one of those three. But for the most part, your starters are set, and I struggle to find a strong case to pick a true offensive tackle with pick 25. Let's move to interior offensive line. You've made a couple of additions here. You've added Roger Saffold and Greg Manns. You've also said goodbye to John Feliciano and maybe Ryan Bates and maybe Ike Bacher. So why is this position group better today than it was at the end of the season? Roger Saffold, right? I mean, that guy, that's the best guard the Bills have had in the McDermott era. I'll say that. And so I think he elevates your interior offensive line in ways that it has not been elevated. Now, you're probably not as deep, especially if you lose Bates. But between Saffold and, look, if Cody Ford puts it all together, there's your course to being better. But I think you're better already because Saffold's here. But you really don't have anything signed beyond this year, and that's the case, right? So your case for interior offensive line at 25 is pretty obvious to me. Right now, your starting guards are Roger Saffold and Cody Ford. Both are expiring contracts, and Cody Ford hasn't really proven anything in the NFL so far. We know he's got some talent, but he's been wildly inconsistent. So to me, I label this as a major need. Ryan Bates comes back, you ease off a little bit. But as things stand, where Ryan Bates is on his way to Chicago, Roger Saffold and Cody Ford are your starting guards, and they're both on the last year of their deal, I'm concerned about it. I think it should be in play at pick 25. And on the Friday podcast last week, I detailed 3 interior offensive linemen that I think would be worth pick 25. So if you missed out on that, go back and listen to it. At edge, defensive end. We're moving on to the defensive side of the football. You've added Von Miller and Shaq Lawson, and you've said goodbye to Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, and F.A. Obata. F.A. Obata signed with the Washington Commanders. So why are you better at this position group? Von Miller. Von Miller, man. I've pinched myself a few times thinking about Von Miller being added to this team. Text my brother a few times like, man, can you believe this? We have Von Miller, one of the premier defensive playmakers in the NFL. So, yeah, you're better because you have that guy. And you also add Shaq Lawson, who I would argue at a minimum replaces like Mario Addison or F.A. Obata. And why else could you be better? I don't know if why else is a phrase or not, but I said it. Well, your young guys take a step, right? Rousseau, Basham, and Epinesa. Those guys very reasonably could take notable steps forward. So I think you're pretty much set here. So what's the case for an edge defender at 25? It's this simple. It's the value stands out, right? It's a premium position. There's a player that you have highly graded that you don't think should be there, and you pick them because it's too good of a value at a premium position to pass up. That's your case. I need to tell you guys about our new partner, Athletic Greens. I started taking Athletic Greens because I wanted to see what all the hype was about. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all the things. I take it to jumpstart my day, and it gives me more energy and balances my diet in a very simple way. Tons of people take some kind of multivitamin, and it's important to choose one with high-quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. Athletic Greens is a small micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every single day to take great care of yourself. Athletic Greens is critical for my daily routine because it helps support better sleep quality and recovery, and it helps support mental clarity and alertness. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, we got some more position groups to get to. Next up is defensive tackle. The Bills have added Daquan Jones, Jordan Phillips, and Tim Settle, and they've said goodbye to Star Lotulelei and Vernon Butler. Why are the Bills better at defensive tackle right now? Well, the new additions, it speaks for itself. You added 3 players in Jones, Phillips, and Settle that are better than either of the 2 players that you said goodbye to in Lotulelei and Butler. You're way better at defensive tackle. Plus, Ed Oliver is still breaking out, right? Like, I'm expecting big things from Ed this year, just like he finished last year. So what's the case here? Is there a case for defensive tackle to be in play at 25? I'd answer it the same way that I did defensive end. The value stands out in a way that's just too hard to pass up. Like a player that shouldn't be there is there, like a Devontae Wyatt from Georgia. That guy sitting there, maybe you pull the trigger if there's not a corner or an interior offensive lineman that you like. So that's why it would be in play, but to me, not, it really shouldn't be. At linebacker, you've added Markel Lee. You've said goodbye to A.J. Klein. Why is it better? Why would the linebacker group be better today than it was at the end of 2021? I think it comes back to your depth. Your depth is improving. Guys like Tyrell Dodson, Andre Smith, Joe Giles Harris. Those guys are emerging young players, and they make your room better. Plus Tremaine, right? Like, I hope we haven't seen the best of Tremaine Edmonds. I think that there's another level of play that he can achieve. So that's why it's better, or that's why it could be better. On top of your defensive line being better, that should help your linebackers, right? You finally have guys like Daquan Jones, Jim Settle to eat space and play the run. You should be better. Greg Rousseau, who was phenomenal as a rookie defending the run, he should be even better in year 2. That's going to help your linebackers. So what's the case at 25 for a linebacker? There isn't a big one in my mind. The big thing would be if you don't plan on bringing back Tremaine Edmonds and you are grooming his replacement, which I'd be surprised if that was the Bills' plan. I wouldn't be surprised if they picked one in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round, but in the 1st round, it would surprise me a lot. So that would be the case for a linebacker at 25. How about cornerback? You've added nothing, literally nothing, and you said goodbye to Levi Wallace, who has been your starter for the last 3.5 years. So why would you be better at corner right now than you were at the end of 2021? You're not. I mean, if you had to stretch and find a reason why, you would say, well, Dane Jackson will take a major step forward, and Trey White is miraculously ready for week 1. That's why you would be better. Somehow Dane Jackson becomes a better player than Levi Wallace, and Trey White is ready to be Trey White in week 1. I'm not counting on those things. So the case for a corner at 25 is pretty friggin' obvious to me. It's a glaring need at a premium position. Glaring. And we've been through this. You know the passing game talent that exists in the AFC. There are talented quarterbacks and receivers all over this conference. You got to deal with them. You need to find some real meaningful help at the cornerback position. Brandon Beane knows it, right? He knows it. He hadn't forgotten about it. But I'm anxious to see what the plan is, because right now we haven't learned anything. Critical need, premium position. On the Friday podcast last week, I detailed my favorite options for the Bills at pick 25. Let's move on to safety. You've added nothing. You've said goodbye to nothing. Why would the position group be better? Well, you have 2 young players in DeMar Hamlin, who was a rookie last year, and Jaquan Johnson, he'll now be a 4th-year player. The reason that they would be better is because those guys, your depth gets better. So what's your case for a safety at pick 25? I don't really think there is a case. It's a non-premium position where you have established starters. You have the best safety pair in the league in Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, and you already have intriguing developmental depth behind it. So unless you want it to become like a 3-safety defense, which you don't want to become that because you already are a 3-corner defense with Taron Johnson being a starter and you're paying him like he's a starter, I don't really see why it would be in play. Now, is there a small part of me that could see the Bills drafting a guy like Daxton Hill in playing him at outside corner? And that would technically be drafting a safety? Maybe, but they would draft him to be a corner. So I don't really think there's a good case or a case at all for a safety at pick 25. So what does this all come back to? The Bills have glaring needs at interior offensive line and cornerback, and that's where I'm focusing things right now at pick 25. You can make a case for wide receiver. If the value is there at another premium position, it would make sense. But I don't know how you can make a case for like running back with the interior offensive line and cornerback rooms the way that they are right now. When you can find a running back in the middle rounds and you don't have viable options to fill out your depth chart at corner and interior offensive line. So that's the conclusion I thought we would come to. And we're obviously going to talk more about the draft, a lot more about the draft. We'll start previewing more positions, talking about different options, digging into some more of the prospects. But today I really just want to focus in on the positions and really outline why or why not they should be in play at pick 25 and really just kind of look at where the Bills ended the season and where they are now and if they're better. Hope you enjoyed. That's going to do it for us here today. Tomorrow is Herd Mentality. Looking forward to that. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.